started having incredible migraines. And so I was seeing a bunch of different specialists and neurologists, and no one could figure out where this pain was coming from. And turns out that I was eventually diagnosed with a thoracic outlet syndrome in my left shoulder.
Mm.
And basically, my ribs just became disaligned. The muscle in my neck was in spasm, and it pulled up this triangle muscular in my left shoulder. My left hand went numb. I had to do PT for 6 months. It was quite an ordeal. Eventually, though, I was really grateful to find out that it was all just stemming from my neck muscles.
Okay. And then, so when you would go to bed at night, that wouldn't get it, you wouldn't get relief.
I had pain while I was sleeping all night long. I think what it really was is that my full-time job was a desk job. I
Yeah.
was going to school to become a paralegal, and I was working as a legal secretary at the time. And so I was sitting all day typing, which isn't really great for our spine health anyway. And I think just the stress in combination with the lack of overall physical well-being, I didn't have time to exercise or stretch. So I think that that really all contributed eventually to this diagnosis, this problem with my neck muscles and my left shoulder.
How long did you live with that before you decided that you wanted to fix it with a pillow, or invent a pillow, or ask somebody to invent a pillow?
Sure. Well, so after I got diagnosed, the neurologist and the physical therapist both told me that I needed to start sleeping in a very certain position, mainly on my back. That if I slept on my side, I had to do this weird thing with my hands to keep my shoulder down. But they recommended that I become a back sleeper. I had been a stomach sleeper, and they told me about a few different specialty pillows that could help me make the adjustment. And so I tried a lot of different pillows for about 4 or 5 years that were available on the market, and none of them were comfortable for me. The problem with most of them that I found is they locked me into just one position where I wasn't able to roll over on my side if I wanted to. And ultimately, I think the greatest issue that I had, because I was sleeping on my back to help my neck muscles, eventually in the middle of the night, my head would twist over my shoulder,
Mm.
and I would end up straining my neck muscles all night long. And this unnatural twist of the head, it would just fall too far over. So then I started focusing on pillows that would keep my head in more of an upright angle. There are a few of those available that I did find, but unfortunately they were very restricting and hot, and once again they prohibited me from rolling over on my side or changing sleeping positions.
Hmm.
So that is kind of the journey. I actually invented the spearhead pillow just for myself because I desperately needed something, and I found nothing on the market that would help me.
But you're not an inventor. How did you, or why did you decide to go down that path? I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Right. Well, so I was not an inventor. By that point, I was very into my paralegal career and I loved it, but I didn't really have a choice. I wasn't sleeping. I still had migraines. I still had neck and shoulder issues. And I just needed this pillow that I saw in my mind. I knew that that was the solution for me, and there was nothing on the market similar. So I did contact a patent attorney, and I now do have 3 patents to utilities and a design because there really is nothing similar to it
Hmm.
in North America, and or available for sale here, I should say, as well.
Right.
And I didn't have any intention, however, of bringing it to market for other people. I truly just made it for myself. I just wanted a prototype so I could sleep at night. And then I had a friend's mother who actually got diagnosed with the exact same syndrome in her shoulder. And so I lent her my pillow just for a couple nights so she could try it out, get some relief, and she loved it. And that's when I realized there's other people out there struggling the way that I was. This hole in the market for me exists for others as well. And I decided to take the plunge and go down the invention route and now the entrepreneurial role. And yes, just hoping others do find relief.
Okay. There's so much I want to ask you about how you spent your days, and then what are the effects of, say, a bad night's sleep. We'll get into all that in a second. But as it relates to creating something like this, anything, Where do you begin? Like, is it about deciding what you want it to feel like, and then identifying the right materials? Do you go talk to an inventor first? Where do you be? I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't even know where to get started. So how did you, what was the first step to create something like that?
So my first step was sketching it out and looking into the patents. And at the same time, I started messaging and interviewing different engineers that could help me create a CAD file. And that's kind of like the 3D mold that you need to create an actual product. So I got the CAD file, and then I found, unfortunately, there were no manufacturing plants here in the US that would take such a small order of just a couple prototypes.
Yeah.
So I went overseas just to find a manufacturing plant that could make me, just a prototype for myself at the time. They wouldn't make one though. I did have to get four. And so that was fine because it did help to pass them out down the road as well. But that's how I started. And then obviously my first ones were not as comfortable as I had wanted. The foam was just too firm for me. Everyone has their own preference,
Hmm.
but absolutely finding that right consistency is key and did take many years. Before this actual product became on market, I went through countless foam types. And eventually, I do wish to offer a firmer and softer foam to fit those specific preferences. Right now, I'm just a small little startup business. So I found one foam that's like in the middle that is probably not as soft as some may like or as firm as some may like, but I'll tell you, I haven't had one negative comment about the consistency so far. So I do think that it suits most of the sleeping adults, we'll say.
Okay. Do you keep track of how many clients you've acquired since, the product released?
So I sell it myself directly about half the time. So yes, I know how many I have personally sold through my website or through Amazon, but I do partner with chiropractors, physical therapists, acupuncturists, massage therapists, just anyone in the healthcare industry whose
Right.
clientele could benefit from the Spearhead pillow.
Right.
And so they purchase a lot from me for a wholesale price.
Okay.
And then they sell them directly themselves. So that information I wouldn't really have access to.
Okay, okay. So the other question I had, again, when you're getting started, given that you aren't an engineer or an inventor, how many CAD engineers are out there? I mean, thousands of them, I would think. How do you pick the right one? Or how do you know you're picking somebody that gets what you are trying to accomplish? And then second to that, how do you select an overseas manufacturer and know you're picking the right one? I mean, I'm sure there's language barriers and time, discrepancies, et cetera. And then on top of that, how do you choose the right foam when you don't, like again, I know you're relying, I'm sure, on experts, but you still have to trust the experts that you're going to, and maybe you didn't know them at first. So any thoughts on that stuff? I know I asked you three questions in one.
Oh, no, that's fine. So I did have a couple engineers that did not work out. So I had one engineer who created my first CAD file. What he wanted to do was use a 3D printer and layer foam. And I was like, there's no way that would work. And that was the end of his capabilities.
Hmm.
So I went to a second engineer and actually had a very rough lesson learned. There are people out there that are not honest and may represent themselves and their capabilities in dishonest manners. So I actually had a bad situation, and that's what really helped me learn.
Hmm.
So when I went to find a third engineer, I interviewed several. And really, on what I did is I did Zooms so I could see them, get a feel for who they were, their mannerisms. I would say for anybody who's an entrepreneur or an inventor that trusting your team is vital, and the people that you work with can make or break you. And you do have to go with your gut on that, your read of people. For me, I think I was ignorant when I first started and I didn't take that as seriously. And I did suffer consequences as a result.
Hmm.
But the engineer that I found, who I ended up working with for this product that is now on market, is phenomenal. And I trust him implicitly. I feel so grateful to have found him. And to answer your other question, he actually has the manufacturing plant overseas. So he's a co-owner of it. He personally lives in Utah, but he does go overseas, and he knows the connections there. He's worked with them for countless years. He's an inventor himself and has several products out there too. So you really just have to find the people who, first off, that you get that right vibe, that you can trust them, but also that has the background in proof, not
Hmm.
just words. But like I said, this gentleman that I ended up working with, he's invented several products. This is his manufacturing plant that he has worked with for about 20 to 30 years. And that is really why I went with him. And I had recommendations as well. Other people that I trust told me about him, and they worked with him in other capacities. And so it's all about vetting.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like, and then through those relationships, they helped you select the materials, the foam, all that stuff, correct?
Well, so I had been working on the phone with that second engineer, and I would say that I wanted to be a little bit firmer, a little bit softer. So that was actually another negative result of that middle engineer disappointing me so much. I hate to say it that way. But the problem was that my foam consistency, he knew, and that was at the manufacturing plant that he was working with. And all of a sudden, so I had the perfect foam of what I wanted to take to market, and I no longer had the equation to it. So I sent one of them to the manufacturing plant, and they felt it, and they did different prototypes, and it did take about 5 more tries, but they did match it. And I do have now that equation. So at any point in time, I'll never be in that situation again.
What was the time frame between the inception of the idea to the actual selling of the product? How many years went by?
5 years.
5 years. Is that what you expected going into it?
No, not at all. It does seem every step along the way felt like it was right around the corner.
Yeah.
And even coming to market. So I order my lot of, I have 4,000 pillows. Like I said, I'm just a small little startup business, and I wanted to get more general feedback, not just the people who are testing out the prototype. And so I got my 4,000 pillows. I feel like I'm ready to hit the road and start selling. And yet, still, the website was supposed to be up in March, doesn't come up till May. Amazon has it was constant. You just think that there could be no bumps in the road for this one step, that it has to be streamlined and go so smoothly. And I don't foresee any issues whatsoever. And then, of course, nothing will ever go as planned. That is what I have learned by being an entrepreneur. Even in the inventor realm, I was saying that it was about 6 months away for about the last 3 years,
Oh,
because it
wow.
really felt that way. I genuinely thought that that was my time frame. And I would just suggest to anybody out there who's looking to explore this to take any sort of time frame you may have, and just for safety, quadruple it. This way you won't be under any sort of time constraints, or stressed at all. Just know in your mind that if it feels like it's 6 months, it may be closer to 2 or 3 years.
Wow. Now you were working during this process, right? So you're making money in your job at your job and doing this at the same time.
Correct.
Were you bootstrapping this, or were you able to get an investor or a lender to help you with the whatever costs were associated with this process?
So I was self-funded for most of this process. I did obtain a small business loan to order the 4,000 units.
Is this a company that you plan to run for the next, 10, 20 years, or do you think it's a company that will be acquired at some point?
Oh, I definitely want to keep running it. So right now, my hope is when I have about 1,000 pillows left, I would like to that point place an order for about 50 to 100,000 pillows. Basically, by that point, I think I'll have enough feedback that in case it needs to be tweaked at all, I'll be
Yeah.
able to make those small little adjustments to the pillow, and then I feel like I'll be able to expand sales exponentially. But I do think that it's an easier route to maybe build up a company and sell it. I hear that all the time. But for me, it's very important. I really did invent this pillow and decided to take it to market just to help people. By owning the pillow myself, I can keep the price down for the consumer. I also would like to open my own manufacturing plant here so I can give manufacturing jobs very fair pay. I have a friend who works in a manufacturing plant and she is not treated well. And
Mm.
that's very important to me as well, that I would like to help employees and give them benefits and treat them like they're humans. And then I also, if I ever am fortunate enough to have enough revenue where I can pay my bills for my very modest little lifestyle, it's very important to me to donate as much profit as I can. So my fear is if I sell the company down the road, someone else, first off, who knows where it's going to be manufactured, how they'll treat their employees, they could skyrocket the cost of the pillow because specialty pillows do go for much more than what I sell the Spearhead pillow for. Yes, I would make some money from that sale, but would it be enough to make the difference and the impact that I would like to make on the charities that mean something to me? So I'm in this for the long haul. I really did this and left my paralegal career that I loved just so I could make more of a difference in the world.
Wow, you sound like a nice person. You sound
Oh,
like a really nice person. There are a lot of people and not that selling it isn't nice. If you sold it, you could still be a nice person. I talk to a lot of people who build stuff to sell it, and their whole goal is to get out and cash out and live the high life. So it's cool to hear you tell that story. Right now, though, your manufacturing takes place overseas. You're saying that ultimately you'd like to bring it back domestically. Um, the reason I want to ask about this is in order for you to offer the pillow at an affordable price, it probably helps to have it manufactured somewhere else. But the catch 22 is if you bring it back domestically, how do you continue to keep the costs down
right.
if that's your intention? How do you continue to do that?
Well, that's exactly why it's overseas.
Yeah.
So there are manufacturing plants here in North America that would do an order of 4,000. Not many. That is considered too small for a lot of our plants locally.
Yeah.
But I would have had to increase the price quite a bit in order to have this pillow manufactured here, and that's not what I want. So I own my molds that are in the manufacturing plants overseas. And so, yes, my next order, that 50 to 100,000, that will have to take place currently where they're being manufactured. But
Hmm.
I would hope to save enough revenue off those sales that at that point I can open up my own manufacturing plant. And that is how I would keep the costs down, is if I manufacture it myself. We do have some issues in this country. Everyone needs their cut and their overhead fees. And I think the best way to go about it is just to have my own plant. This way I can make sure that the pillow stays affordable for people and money's going where it should be, which is to the workers.
What is the pillow going for right now, Eliza?
It's $59.99.
As compared to, I won't name any competitors out there, but if anyone watches TV, they probably know some of the the high profile pillow names.
Mm.
What are those pillows? Double the price, I'm assuming, somewhere around that ballpark.
The average specialty pillow goes for over $100.
Okay.
And I know because I was buying so many. That's why this is so important to me.
Right.
I wasn't working three jobs for fun to put myself through school.
Yeah.
I struggled financially for several years. And the cost of these specialty pillows was not in my budget. And I
Hmm.
needed it for my sleep, which is vital for your overall health and well being.
Right.
And so it's a catch 22 in a lot of ways in our country, right? I
Yep.
mean, you can't afford to eat healthy, so you eat, fast food, which isn't cheap anymore, but then you have medical bills. I mean, it's so that's how I felt with the pillow game is I wasn't sleeping well. I was going through major health issues in terms of these headaches and my neck and not having any sort of feeling in my left hand. And
Yeah.
I knew what I needed to do to remedy that and to have the best life that I could. but yet getting the funds to constantly be purchasing different specialty pillows was not in my reality.
Right, right. Well, how quickly after you invented this version of the pillow, or how quickly after it became accessible to you, did you start to feel a difference in your pain?
Immediately. So, everyone, now that I have a more broad answer to this question, because more people are using it, I do find that people are different. Some are like me from night one, they love it and it relieves their pain. Some, it takes 3 nights. What I do tell the consumers out there is give it at least 7 consecutive nights. I compare it to other healthcare aids or processes. So, like a massage, a physical therapy appointment, acupuncture, insoles for your shoes. Some things are uncomfortable at first, but if you stick with them, they're ultimately beneficial for your overall well being and health.
We talked about this before we started recording. I would, I look at this and I say, all right, the pillow is important. You want to be comfortable. It's certainly a partial answer to somebody who might have pain, but there are different reasons why somebody may be uncomfortable. You could have been born with a condition that through no fault of your own, you've got say a nerve issue or a bone structure issue, and that causes discomfort, maybe a disability. There are other people that get injured, they're in an accident. And then there are some people that just can't sleep and they're in pain because of stress. So the pillow is certainly going to help. But in addition to the pillow, were there any other adjustments you made on a personal level that contributed to you feeling better? Or is it simply just the pillow?
So, I eventually graduated and left my 2 part-time jobs and became a paralegal full time, which put me in a chair for a lot longer. And it
Yeah.
became very important to make sure that, yes, my desk and chair, everything was set up appropriately to make sure to care about my spine and my neck and my whole body, really.
Yeah.
But it was also very important to set a timer to get up and walk for a certain amount of minutes every hour, and that helped me quite a bit. It's not easy when you have a desk job, at least from my perspective and from my coworkers who I've worked with for nearly 17 years in the paralegal world. When we have an assignment, it's easy to lock in, and it's very difficult to force oneself to get up and walk around.
Hmm.
But that was very important for me, and it definitely helped my whole body, not just my neck or back.
Right. Well, the other reason I'm asking is I have sleep apnea. I've talked about it on this podcast before. I know that I can roll over with my CPAP machine using your pillow, and it's
Mm.
not going to be a problem. If I have long hair, which I don't, but I think your pillow is really good at accommodating lengths of hair or CPAP equipment. Um, but the CPAP machine, for example, is a remedy for my sleep apnea. But if I continue to eat like a madman and I put on 30 pounds or 40 pounds, for example, it's not going to resolve the real underlying issues. I would think the same thing with the pillow. I was actually talking with somebody the other day, and there's a lot of people I've met along the way in my life, and I talk to them still to this day. There's somebody who's telling me they can't sleep, they don't sleep well
Mm.
at night, and I know what that feels like. But a lot of the people that I have met or I know that aren't sleeping well are usually not. It's a self-induced problem,
Yes.
and so oftentimes it's a couple. It usually comes down to a couple things. They eat too late. A lot of food, say after 7 o'clock at night, which causes the body temperature to go up because you're
Mhm.
forcing your stomach to digest late and you sweat at night. Alcohol late, caffeine late, and then usually a lack of exercise during the day. So it's interesting that you brought up walking. And then there's all other stuff like, stress as a result of whatever, relationships, work, and anxiety induced problems. So that all a lot of it though is self-induced. The reason I'm bringing that up is there might be some people out there in pain who aren't sleeping that are also not doing these other things, right? So they're going to buy your pillow expecting a miracle, but I would think the pillow can't resolve the other stuff, right? If they're not doing these other things.
Well, what I would say is that the spearhead pillow will definitely relax the neck muscles and keep your spine aligned while sleeping, to anyone out there listening. It's not going, I cannot promise a good night's sleep. I can promise that you'll wake up with no pain.
Okay.
However, I agree with you. I do think that there's a lot that goes in and to get a good night's sleep. They say no electronics, a certain, I think it's like an hour before bed. Don't do anything in your bed besides sleep. So no eating, no TV. Like you said, don't eat late. So personally, I'm very healthy in terms of my overall lifestyle. So I do exercise every morning. I don't eat after 5 o'clock at night, except for a rare exception. But that's my own choice. I also meditate before bed. That helps me sleep well. I don't recommend my lifestyle for everyone. I'm fortunate where I don't have children to consider. I have a lot of friends that have kids, and I was a stepmom for a while. And you have your bedtime routine, and sometimes that 1 hour after the kids go to bed and before they wake up in the morning, a parent maybe has 1 hour to look at their phone or for their time to watch television and decompress. So it's really unrealistic, I think, that my personal lifestyle and the way I live could apply to the average. Um, but I agree with you. I think a lot of sleep issues are self-imposed in other ways, though. I think sometimes I know a few people who have a lot of trouble sleeping. And to be honest, this is going to sound very maybe judgmental, but sometimes I think people just need to live in a certain moral way. I sleep soundly every night, and I think it's because I live every day as the best version of myself.
Mhm.
And I think that we really kind of overlook that sometimes. If you have a hard time looking in the mirror, if you self-medicate so you don't have to face yourself, if you're always in a relationship so you can focus on someone else. I mean, I do think that we have a general problem where we have a lack of self-realization. And I think the more people see themselves clearly and then take accountability for their actions and treat people well, I think they'll sleep a lot better. I know that sounds maybe very out there, but it's just a personal opinion.
Well, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I think we spend way too much time in this country marketing to keep people sick. We market products to keep people sick and needing
Mhm.
the products, whether it's a sleeping pill or anything, right? And instead of just taking some element of responsibility for self-care at some level.
Correct.
There are too many band-aids out there. I don't care if I sound judgmental. If somebody wants to come back at me and say you judge, fine, I'll take that hit. But we only have X amount of years on this earth, and I still make unhealthy decisions. I'm not here to claim I don't.
Well, right. Oh, absolutely. Of course.
Right, but if my unhealthy decisions are the norm, then ultimately I'll pay the price for that. And the thing is like I think people just underestimate how critically important a good night's sleep is.
Yes.
It's arguably the most important thing we can all do. And I don't want to give excuses to parents. I have three kids. They're out of diapers now. Two are in college and one's in high school. But when they were babies, my wife and I, our sleep was terrible.
Oh,
And on top of that,
sure.
I had sleep apnea. So I was a zombie. I was a zombie. And I think back even as a child, we had a stressful home, and my sleeping patterns were terrible. I had migraine headaches for years. I took medication for those for years. Thank God I don't take any medication anymore. But I couldn't relax at night. I was always sweating, sick to my stomach. It was terrible. And then the consequences of not being able to sleep played out all day long. Again, the
Yeah.
headaches would persist, stress would persist, my ability to navigate like tension, not good. So, and I think about now, like I refuse to live my adult life like that. I refuse. I look at it and I say, who am I hanging around? What kinds of people do I allow in my life? How do I treat myself? Am I taking care of myself? Because once I started doing that, and got a CPAP machine, by the way, because I could
Yeah.
not. my life changed. It completely changed when I started getting sleep. And I only need 6.5 hours to feel the lights on.
Yes.
Other people might need 8 or 9. But I don't know if you have any comments on that. I'm just rambling about myself right now. But uh,
No, I completely agree. I think that it is very important. Every point that you just made, who you associate with, I think is unfortunately sometimes we may have coworkers that we cannot escape, but try to surround yourself with as many positive people that you can. It definitely impacts your sleep and your overall well-being. A lack of sleep, as you said, can then affect every area of your life, your relationships, how you can handle traffic in the morning, your whole temperament. Personality and stress are very connected to your rest. And we all do need a different amount of hours. Absolutely. I do agree with that. I don't think it's a one size fits all. And,
right.
and I'm like you, I need about 6 hours and I feel great and just on it. But yes, every point you made, it's about the self care. We I think sometimes we like to sacrifice so much for others and those that we love, but we love ourselves too, and we're also important. And so we have to consider our own needs also. And all of that contributes to being able to sleep well at night.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. I mean, self-care is not I mean, I guess it's selfish at some level, but if you don't take care of yourself, the byproduct of that is you're imposing a problem on other people. So even as a parent, if you're not getting sleep because you're sacrificing for your children,
Mhm.
then you're not going to be the best parent you can be during the day, and you're probably going to be less patient, and you're probably going to get sick faster, and you're
Right.
probably going to call in sick to work, and you know your performance is going to go down. So there are, again, there's a residual effect, and I think that right now we're marketing to the stressed out person. You know, whether it's a vacation or a pill or a tummy tuck or a gastric bypass, at the end of the day, none of those things resolve the underlying issues which is, I got to get my life together. And some people,
Yes.
unfortunately, they're born into a situation where maybe they don't have the luxury of getting their life together. Maybe they have a pre-existing condition, or maybe they're in an abusive environment, or maybe, you know, who knows what it is, right? But if you do have a say in it, the reason I guess I'm going down this path with you is the pillow, in order for the pillow to maximize its potential, which it'll reduce the pain, but in conjunction with that, the person or the buyer or the client of the pillow
Mhm.
should also consider these other things. Whether we're judging them or not, there's no harm in taking care of yourself.
Well, and I do think that life is very difficult. No matter if you're a human, and it doesn't matter how you live in this world. Life is hard for us all, and happiness and well-being will not just magically fall into anyone's lap. So it takes a lot of hard work to achieve that contentment and that peace. We prescribe things that are not healthy for us. And obviously, there are a lot of studies about, social media and medications and alcohol, and the list goes on about all the ways that we can avoid what's really at the root of it.
Right.
Which is why it brings me back to what I was saying before about this business. For me, I know that happiness is nothing that I can buy. So I don't want a fancy car. I don't want a boat. I don't want a mansion or multiple homes. I want my little one bedroom cottage in Maine. That's my dream. I don't have it yet, but that's my goal in life. And the happiness is really everything that we talked about, the surrounding ourselves with good, positive people, giving love, receiving love, that self care. So that love is for ourselves as well. I mean, that is really where that happiness and that peaceful night's sleep comes from. But once again, that's just my own perspective. Don't want to be on a soapbox here, but I definitely concur with everything that you have said.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think as you go on in life and you get older and you learn some lessons, hopefully you make the adjustments. There are some that never make the adjustments, and the pillow won't fix that. The CPAP machine won't fix that. So, I'm not at all afraid to sound a little judgy because on the flip side of it, the marketing machines out there
Hmm.
perpetuating a problem. Not in a conspiracy theory way or anything,
Right, no, right.
but like, there's no harm in perpetuating the sale, like the sale of sugar-based products, which by the way, I have sugar in my diet. I'm not here to say you shouldn't have sugar. But if I eat sugar too much, there are dire consequences. You can market cigarettes and alcohol, and I don't smoke, but I do drink. But if I drink every day, there are dire consequences to that. And so there's no shame in marketing all that stuff. So I think it's okay at some level to be firm on we owe ourselves a healthier lifestyle. Whether it sounds judgmental or not, I don't care.
I think the
Because,
difference is one is based on consumerism. Like, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that's why, we market products that keep us sick, right? Keep us in that system and that cycle.
yep,
And the alternative, what you and I are discussing, is all free.
right.
And it's just about the person and their being, and they're willing to work hard and obtain that more satisfying life. So there's no money in it for anyone. And so I think that's why it's just not as popular here. There are definitely other cultures, though, that I think would be right in line with this conversation. They would hear it and be like,
Yeah.
they're on to something.
Well, yeah.
Hopefully we'll bring that about here too in this culture.
Well, if you look at the statistics in our country, I want to say it's 70% of the U.S. population is obese. I think it's 70%,
It's
mildly.
up there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty significant. And in the mental health, the quality of mental health in the U.S. is lagging. We're
Mhm.
certainly not among the mentally healthiest countries in the world. And so as those two numbers continue to escalate, so doesn't diabetes, so don't heart issues,
Yeah.
all those things, cancers. And so what pisses me off, quite frankly, is how we mock health. Health
Right.
gets mocked. Certain people that take care of themselves are, man, you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and why would you do that? Or, why don't you have an extra beer? Or why don't you try this? You get it. And I'm not saying I get mocked, but I do think healthiness, meditation, exercise, certain food choices. People kind of give it a slanted. There's a slanted look at that, as if like, why don't you just relax and enjoy life? Only the good die young. Let's do all these
Hmm.
things. But in the meantime, somebody's going to have to give you a bath someday. Somebody's going to have to help you off the toilet someday a little bit faster. You're not going to
Right.
be able to feed yourself someday if you continue to do these things. And I talk to my wife about this all the time. I'm like, I don't want you having to do this stuff for me. So if I can do anything now to reduce the likelihood of that later, I'm going to do it. Now, there's no guarantee that she's not going to have to take care of me or vice versa. But if I can somehow reduce the likelihood of it, I'm going to do that. And I know I'm probably thinking too far ahead, but it's definitely something that's in my mind.
Oh, of course. I mean, I've always been a future thinker. For me, that was a survival tactic during childhood. So I always like to think 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. I always have some sort of roadmap that I'm going to. And of course, it always changes. But definitely, that thinking about the future helps you live for today. It helps you plan. So it's always good to have those goals and that mindset. Personally, that's what I think. So I completely agree. I also think about way down the road too. I am a vegetarian. I don't drink. I do smoke pot every once in a while. I won't lie. And I do enjoy a cigar. I love to go to a cigar club with my dad and play cards and, smoke a stick.
Here you
And,
go.
and yes, I meditate every day and I exercise every day. And, that's the thing, is that you don't need to be 100% on any sort of page. But
Yep.
I think that we've really put people into boxes a lot lately, a lot more than I ever experienced in my younger years. And so now, if you talk about meditation or yoga, which I don't like yoga, it's like that's the thing, not everyone's in the box,
Sure.
but you're considered a certain type of person.
Yep.
And if you play video games and you get stoned, you're considered a certain type of person. And that's not true.
Right.
None of us are in a box. We all fit different elements. So, yes, I'm healthy sometimes and sometimes I'm not. And that's a good balanced lifestyle. You don't want too much of anything. I
Yep.
don't think that that's beneficial. Whether it's something positive, too much of it is ultimately going to be a negative,
Yes.
and vice versa.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. So it's July, it's vacation month for me. And I was sitting last night watching the Olympics, and I thought, man, half of this month I've been unhealthy. It's just crazy.
Right.
Like the month of July, I'm like, my choices in July, although I've had a great time, are much different than my choices were in June and May from behavioral standpoint, going out too late standpoint, maybe having too many cocktail standpoint. But I know how to get right back on a path. It's like, okay, so
Yeah.
starting, August 1, right back
And
to the
you gotta let go. I mean, I'll be
yeah,
honest, I only drink on vacation. But if I'm on vacation and I'm on a beach or by a pool somewhere,
yeah,
yes, I'm gonna have a Bloody Mary in my hand. I
yeah,
mean, but no other time, for me, because I'm just not a fan of it. That's all.
sure.
I never was. You have to also loosen up. I don't think those strict guidelines help us. We all know the story of someone who ate healthy, exercised every day, ran marathons, and had a heart attack at 45.
Yes,
I mean, and
yes,
that's the thing about it too, is that the heart is a muscle, just like all of our other muscles, and you can absolutely overdo it.
yep,
So I just think everything in moderation is really the way to go. And ultimately, we need to stop thinking that this one hobby or this one attribute then defines the entire person.
yep,
And now that's their whole lifestyle. So I say I'm vegetarian. So now that means that I'm stuck up and I preach, and,
yeah.
that's not true. So we really need to start accepting that everyone's unique and we're all variety and we all have complexities and multi layers. No one's cookie cutter.
Nobody's cookie cutter, but like no matter what it is, I agree with everything you're saying. No matter what your lifestyle, that's your lifestyle. But if it's not working, if for some reason you don't feel good, or you
Mhm.
feel stressed, or you can't sleep, or your stomach hurts consistently, I don't know, all this stuff. If we all had a little bit more awareness of things we could potentially do to get back on track, we'd all be better off. Don't go for the quick fix. Don't go for the quick fix, because the quick fix won't resolve the problem. And so much of I don't do yoga either. I've done it. I don't even
Mm.
meditate. But what I do is I practice my breathing. Now, I don't know if that counts as meditation. I really don't. But practicing breathing and focusing on just breathing in for a certain period of time, pausing for a certain period of time, release like I can't tell you how much that's improved my ability to relax, my digestion, my ability to fall
Yeah.
asleep. It's
That's
unbelievable.
actually scientific. So, box breathing, 2 minutes, 3 times a day, which is what you're basically describing. You breathe in for 6 seconds, let's say 6, 4, whatever you want. Breathe
Yep.
in for a certain number of seconds, hold it for those seconds, breathe out for those seconds, pause for those seconds. So, box breathing, 2 minutes, 3 times a day reduces your cortisol levels.
Yes.
And that's proven. It'll just help your overall health and well being. And I definitely consider breathing exercises a form of meditation. Meditation, once again, isn't in a box. It means a variety of different things.
Well, I did a podcast recently with somebody on alcoholism and addiction, and I had used the comment because I stole it from somebody else, but the brain is a natural pharmacy.
Hmm.
And I, with breathing, I totally get what you're saying. It reduces cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and it actually triggers the healthier, more positive hormones like oxytocin and
Yes.
serotonin and what all those things, and you can actually feel your brain waking up in a different way. And if I go back 20 years, 30 years, going to bed was stressful because I couldn't fall asleep. Getting up was even worse because I was
Hmm.
exhausted. So it was like both. It sucked on both ends. But now understanding some of the, the biology here. I, I go to bed wanting to get up. Like I go to bed thinking I'm going to fall asleep in 5 minutes. This is awesome.
Yep.
I can't wait to get up. And it's every day. I never in a million years would have thought that would happen. When I go back and I look at how I couldn't get out of bed in high school, how I couldn't get out of bed in college, or I couldn't get out of bed throughout my 20s, all I kept thinking is, how am I going to have a job? How am I ever going to support myself? I'm tired all the time because of poor sleeping habits. And a lot of that had to do with no ability to manage stress, poor diet, staying up too late, being in environments that were a little more stressful than they should be, and all of that. Now, no, understanding that now more fundamentally has completely like reshaped how I feel on a daily basis. So I bring all this up not because it has to do specifically with the sphere head pillow, but I think your pillow will take off even like exponentially when people understand what their responsibility is around the purchase of the pillow beyond purchasing it.
Well, exactly. Nothing to even connect it to Spearhead. Just in general, if someone's listening to this and so they start making some sort of life changes, I mean, that's an impact and that's my whole goal anyway. So this conversation is phenomenal. And I'll also say, I suffer from depression. I have a chemical imbalance, and that's why I exercise every day and why I eat a certain way. For same reason. I never wanted to go on medication. And there are still times where I feel that wave coming on. Those who are listening who suffer from depression will know exactly what I mean. You can feel it before it happens. And I have what helps me in that moment. That is usually when I do smoke pot and I will watch South Park or Frasier. I got to get a laugh in there. And then that wave pushes away.
Yeah.
But that happens very rarely. Most of the time, I manage it just by exercising every day and just getting those endorphins. You're right. Your brain will solve itself if you're listening to it. But that brings us back to that self awareness.
Yeah.
And a lot of us do avoid that look in the mirror. And what are we doing to contribute to our own personality issues? Because they're all from the brain.
Yeah.
So what are we doing for that overall health of our brain and our psyche and therefore our sleep?
At what point in your life, and I want to be respectful of your time here, but at what point in your life did you actually come to that realization that there is self-responsibility? It's beyond, you're trying to resolve neck pain and head pain and all that. But somewhere along the lines, you decided or realized, I've got to take more responsibility for my thinking or my habits. When did that happen?
Well, so obviously my own habits, they've evolved, but I've always had that mentality, I'll say, that future thinking. So I didn't have the easiest childhood. And so I've always realized that life is hard.
Mhm.
And if I wanted to be happy, and I've always had this really enormous drive to help and to contribute. And that's what kept me going for a long time, was knowing, because I do suffer from depression, and I didn't know that when I was younger.
Mhm.
But just knowing that if I weren't here, who would help the people that I want to help? That someone may, but maybe it wouldn't be as pure. Like that's what kept me going,
Yeah.
and fighting. And really knowing that I'm responsible for my happiness kicked in single digit years.
Mm.
And that's why my whole life has been this different, I'll say, out of the box path versus the standard society roadmap. Because it's all been about achieving my happiness and working very hard for those goals.
Mm.
And it has not been easy, but I've always really been in charge of that, knowing that my survival and my life is all dependent on me and how I live and my choices.
How much is the you starting this company? How much has that fueled that thing inside of you, that happiness or that belief? And to what extent has it?
Well, this is actually difficult. This is a whole new challenge for me. So it's been a lot easier to live the way that I would like to when I was working and earning a paycheck. I always donated a third of my salary. That made me feel really good. I had more free
Wow.
time to work in community service. I definitely felt more fulfilled back pre-entrepreneur.
Hmm.
This phase has been difficult because it does feel very self-centered almost. I no longer have funds the way that I used to, and or the free time the way that I used to. So it's fueling it knowing that that's the ultimate goal and that's why I'm doing this, and that's what keeps me going every day when it is very difficult to start a business. So it's still helping me quite a way, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's kicked into full gear, because I feel like right now maybe most of my energy and my mental capacity is going towards just trying to make this successful, which
Yep.
is pre being able to do what I really would love to do down the road. But it's the necessary work to get there. So I'm still kind of in that mode, I guess, where I'm striving for the new goal.
I'm wondering if money wasn't an issue,
Hmm.
which we all need money at some level. At some level, we need some of it, right?
Mhm.
But if money weren't an issue and you took that out of the equation and then you go back to being a paralegal and money weren't an issue there, you were just doing both jobs in parallel.
Yeah.
Entrepreneur, paralegal, money's a non-factor. You'll be able to eat and you'll be able to live and you can get your
Yeah.
soap and your toothpaste. It's no problem. How would you rate the fulfillment of each path?
Oh, I mean, I definitely feel fulfilled every day. Like you, I go to bed excited to wake up for the next day.
Yeah,
So there's no lack of fulfillment there.
yeah,
The difference is when I was a paralegal, I initially became a paralegal to go into public interest law, and that's not the path that my career took me. And I do see the purpose in that. I was able to self fund my business for so long because I was not in public interest law. So ultimately, that makes a lot of sense as, I feel okay with that decision.
yeah.
Um, that was very fulfilling just because, yes, I was helping people. I was a probate and estates paralegal. So I was helping people through the most difficult times of their life, death, and also planning for death, which is a difficult conversation for many as
Yeah.
well. And and I was very fortunate to have a lovely little lifestyle. I definitely had a dream job. The last firm I worked at was phenomenal, and I made quite more than I needed. And so I was able, like I said, to make those financial contributions and with my time as well. And that felt fulfilling. This is in a different capacity completely. I'm really looking at a larger scale, which has always been my goal. I want to help as many people as possible. And there are charities that really mean something to me. So I want to help people with the spearhead pillow. I want to help them get out of pain. Maybe this podcast will help them sleep better at night as well. And I would like to help people that I can employ, but really, there are charities out there that mean something to me that I'd love to make an impact. And so this path for fulfillment is immeasurable at this point. And that's why I'm really giving it my all. I could have done both. I could have stayed being a paralegal, but this may have taken longer than to pick up. And so I made that decision to leave my career and start this new journey.
Hmm.
And I don't regret it at all. It's very difficult, and every day is a struggle, but I'm a fighter and I'm going to make it work. And I just know it's a matter of time. And I'm going to make the impact and contribution that will be the most fulfilling. But that's what's keeping me going right now, is that desire and that need to help.
I don't know anybody that gave a third of their income to charity.
I don't have kids, and I did make a very nice income.
Yeah,
So it's different. I don't personally believe in hoarding money. That's my own belief. Like everything we've talked about, this isn't judgments on anyone.
sure.
I just believe that money should be spent. It needs to stay in circulation.
Yeah,
I just don't need a lot to live on. I
yeah,
don't want a lot of things.
yeah.
And really, that's just my own feeling about it. Is I don't need to see a big number in my bank account. I think it's way more important that someone else can eat or has sleep, has heat in their home. And
Yeah.
there's people that need that money more than my savings account. So it's just how I think of it.
That's
But
fantastic. It's not the norm. If there's advice in this area, it's how to make more. And that's there's no problem with making more. But
Right.
what are you doing with it? Are you just consuming? Are you giving? Are you saving? Like there's so many things. Anyway, but I'm not here to decide who does what with money. But your story is very unique because I don't know a lot of people that have done that. Whether you had kids or you don't have kids, it's still an interesting choice, and it's a generous choice. Maybe you could just comment on the charities that are important to you, even though you might
Sure.
not be able to do as much as you want now. Maybe somebody else can.
So there's a variety of charities. One that I really cherish quite a bit is, and I don't want to name anyone because every state will have their own. I'm in Rhode Island, it's a very small little state, and I'm sure we have several here. But there are charities that you can donate for vets, for people who cannot afford medication or surgery or proper food for their animals.
Hmm.
So I had a cat and I loved him with all my heart. And as he got older, he did need medication and he did need a certain type of very expensive food. And that's when I found out about this charity. And I just felt so fortunate that I could give him everything that he needed to make his life as good as it could be.
Hmm.
And my heart broke for people who don't have that option because our pets are important to us all.
Hmm.
And then also, I know this sounds very random, but in Jackson, Mississippi, half the street has water and half the street cannot. And the businesses that don't have water
Wow.
suffer. And there's actually like three small little nonprofits there that are trying to solve this water issue in Jackson, Mississippi. And I don't know why, but I've heard these news stories and my heart just goes out to Jackson, Mississippi for so many different reasons, but I feel like this is something we could definitely fix.
Yeah.
And then the last one is there's a charity where they take the people out of the tunnels in Las Vegas and they put them in rehab. And I saw it on Real Sports with Brian Gumboldt. It's some basketball players started it, and I don't know basketball, so but I think it's called Light at the End of the Tunnel. But I haven't been able to donate because they need larger donations. What they do is they take the homeless and the addicts out who are living in the tunnels in Las Vegas. They put them in rehab. They help them get jobs. They help them get apartments. For here in Rhode Island, Crossroads does the same thing, and they mean quite a deal to me.
Hmm.
I have, I actually, before I became a paralegal, I tried to work at Crossroads. They just work with the homeless, but same thing, where they help them get homes, they help them go to rehab, they just really help them get better in their lives. And the homeless has always been a huge part of my heart. That was the public interest law I wanted to go into. And I did always think I would open up my own shelter when I was young, in
Wow.
middle school and in high school. I thought someday I'm gonna have my own shelter, and I don't know why that's always been on my heartstrings, but definitely I think that, and I do know we're supposed to call them now unhoused. Um, that's a terrifying situation. And I think that we become very judgmental against other people, whether they're addicts, whether they're unhoused. And none of us have like I said, life is hard for all of us. And I think that's probably why I've always donated so much, just because, I think we're all kind of in this together. I really do. I think that energy flows through us all
Hmm.
and through the world too. We really just all need to come together. And now this is a huge soapbox and totally a tangent and unrelated, but like we all have to work together.
Yeah.
And just as a human race in general, for the planet, in this country, I mean, that's just how it is.
Yep.
It's not one of us is going to survive and the other one isn't.
Yeah.
We all are going to do this together. So that's always been my mentality and belief. So,
Well, no, it's not. It's not a soapbox. It's not a soapbox. It ties back to all the stuff that we talked about today. In that we're all like a couple of decisions away from being homeless.
mhm,
We're all a couple of decisions away from being an addict. Like we're all a couple of choices away from being like clinically depressed. So all of those things can happen to anybody if like sometimes it's not our fault and sometimes it's self-induced. But at the end of the day, we all could be right there. under that bridge. And there's nothing worse for me than to drive by an area like that. We have one in Boston, that whole Mass and Cass area, and to drive by it and see what a human being can devolve into
Yes.
is just tragic. It's tragic, and there's all sorts of it really gets at me. Like you almost feel like you're not looking at a person anymore. That is a person. You know what I
Right.
mean? These are people. I drove by recently, and there was a baby out there,
Oh,
and somebody was holding a baby, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. We are all just a couple of choices away, the wrong prescription away, one bad feeling away from making a decision that causes us to end up there. And that's why I am a little bit judgmental when I go down the path of health and wellness, because nobody's stopping this other thing over here. We're marketing people onto the street.
yes.
We really are. We are making trillions of dollars in this world putting people on the street,
Yes.
but we're not talking the opposite side. So at the risk of offending people, I'll take that risk all day long.
And to be honest with you, most countries are that way, right? So we don't realize how many countries there are around this world, but a lot don't have a middle class. A
Right.
lot have the few ultra rich
Yeah.
and the many very poor.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see this country or any country in that state, because exactly, it's a privilege to live. And I think that we are sometimes, a lot of us are just surviving.
Yeah.
And when you're in that survival mode, it's difficult. And I guess what I like to do is just help people get out of the survival mode and into the living mode,
Yeah.
as much as just one little person can, which I know is not a lot of impact, but even a conversation like this that's being broadcasted, truthfully, I would have this conversation with a dear friend, with my partner. I would not normally ever talk about this with a stranger or for others to listen to, just because I do think that they're my own beliefs and I don't want to sound preachy. But it helps. I can see why this would help, and I'm really glad that we went down this road and had these tangents, because anything out there, like I said, if it connects with anybody listening to just change their own lifestyle, or maybe to donate more, help out more, or not judge those that are on the street, that's definitely positive influence. So I'm really grateful that we veered here.
Well, I'm glad you came on, Eliza. I enjoyed it. I told you we would probably go off on little tangents, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, I found it very interesting and very helpful. Is there anything else you want to say that we didn't cover before we wrap up? I'll give you the last word.
Well, because I'm obviously here for my business, I just want people to know that, similar maybe to myself, and like I said, that out of the box path, the Spearhead pillow does not look at all like a pillow should look. And it also doesn't provide maybe the health benefits that we all think a pillow should provide.
Right.
But if we are willing to reimagine what a pillow can offer, then the Spearhead pillow could be for you.
Oh,
So that is what I will say to all those out there. And thank you so much, Dave, for your time today, letting me be on with my pillow, and the wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
I did too. Real quick though, where can they get it? If people want the pillow, who should they call? Where should they go? Amazon? You fill in the blanks there.
So it is available on Amazon and also my website, which is www.spearheadpillow.com. It's SPHEREHEAD. So spearheadpillow.com. And if any healthcare professionals out there would like more information on my affinity program as well, you can contact me on that website. There's a form, and my email address is on there too. And thank you all for listening. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, Eliza. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay.